Are you looking for information about ADHD? Have you been told that it's a lifelong brain disorder that you're born with and you're always going to have it? Well, new research is challenging our beliefs about ADHD. And what scientists are learning is probably going to surprise you. It surprised and educated me. In a few minutes, we're going to break down some of the latest findings on ADHD, what they mean for children, parents, and adults navigating attention challenges. So let's dive in. First, ADHD is harder to define than we once thought. For years, researchers have been searching for a biological marker, maybe a gene or a brain scan pattern that could reliably identify ADHD. But studies like the Enigma Consortium brain imaging study in 2017 found only tiny brain volume differences in children and none at all in adults or teens. And there's no single gene that predicts ADHD, according to researcher John Gabrielli from MIT. To make things more complex, symptoms often overlap with trauma, anxiety, and autism. This makes diagnosis more subjective than we'd like to admit. A 2023 study, which was a follow-up from the MTA study, which was one of the largest long-term ADHD studies ever done, found that only 11% of diagnosed children showed consistent symptoms over time. 11%. For most, their symptoms came and went, sometimes disappearing completely. That's a major shift in how we think about ADHD. Now, what about medication? The same MTA study founded by the National Institute for Mental Health, led by a researcher named James Swanson, found that after 14 months, kids on Ritalin showed the greatest reduction in symptoms. But after 36 months, that benefit completely disappeared. All groups, medicated or not, were functioning about the same. Even Dr. Swanson later said, "There is no long-term effect. The only long-term effect I know is of suppressed growth." That's a powerful statement from the man who helped lead the original research. So if medication helps short-term, how does it help? A study by Elizabeth Bowman and David Coghill, published in 2023, used a knapsack test to measure problem solving in adults. They found that people on stimulants worked faster but didn't actually perform better. Why? Their strategies got worse, not better. Similar findings from a study in 2022 on children at an ADHD camp. These kids on medication behaved better, but they didn't learn more. And another researcher at the University of Pennsylvania found stimulants boost your emotional connection to the task, not your cognitive performance. You feel smarter, but you're not necessarily learning more. Now, here's something that might surprise you. There's no clear dividing line between who has ADHD and who doesn't. There's all sorts of researchers, such as Edmund's Song-Young Barker, who put it plainly, there's no natural cutting point. It's a spectrum. And there's a researcher, Joel Nigg of Oregon Health and Science University, pointed out that only about a third of children with ADHD have the high-risk version that often involves intense anger and real long-term consequences like school dropout and criminal behavior. And those kids need urgent, comprehensive care. But the rest, they may function just fine without medication, especially with the right support. And so finally, the environment matters a lot, it turns out. In a 2023 paper, found that most kids' symptoms changed as their lives changed, not necessarily because of treatment. Some who never had a diagnosis suddenly qualified as teens, and some who had been diagnosed no longer met the criteria. And when researchers interviewed young adults who'd been diagnosed as kids, many said that their symptoms disappeared when they found the right environment. a job they loved, a college major they connected with. So instead of seeing ADHD as a permanent disorder, some researchers now describe it as a mismatch between brain and environment. And that's a much more helpful frame because it allows for a holistic approach. So here's the big idea. ADHD isn't always a permanent brain defect. It's often a situational condition shaped by biology, yes, but just as much by school, work, stress, and support systems. Medication can definitely help some, but so can changing the environment, parenting, and educational style. And maybe there's a question that we could ask, which is, how can we help support this child to grow and function at their best? If this gave you new ways to think about ADHD, please tap like, subscribe, share it with someone who's learning about ADHD, because when we change the story, we can change the possibilities, and we know the human brain is plastic and it can adapt and function at its best with the right supports.